We're in week 12 of the 2019 NFL season, which means tonight I make my week 12 NFL predictions. Last week I went 12-2, which is the response I promised after an abysmal 5-8 week 10. So hopefully I can have a second straight good pick week to prove that last week was not a fluke whatsoever. But before I get to my picks, I want to shout out Little Beats. Little Beats made his channel about a week or two ago, maybe around 2 weeks ago. I'm not 100% sure, but he just started out and he's already surpassed the 100 subscriber mark. So I'm going to put the link to his channel in the description box down below. Let's see if we can get Little Beats to 150 subscribers by the end of the month and to 200 by the end of the year. I think that's a reasonable goal for a channel that's just been starting out. He started out towards the middle of the season, so let's get him at least to 200 by the end of the year. I think it's pretty reasonable. I think it's manageable. So check him out, subscribe to him, listen to him. So on to my week 12 picks. Now I'm not going to go over these for a long time this week. I'm just going to kind of go over these really quickly. So it's going to be a little bit shorter than it has been in weeks past. So as always, I begin with Thursday Night Football. And this week, Thursday Night Football features the Colts and the Texans. I'm going to pick the Texans, although it may be one of those picks that could go wrong because it is a little bit too much to ask for the Texans with the performance that they had last week against Baltimore, a 41-7 defeat at the hands of Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, and they have to quickly bounce back in a short week to play Thursday Night Football. I know it's a lot to ask for the Texans, but I think they're going to get it done. But I think it's going to be one of those relatively low-scoring games in the range of about 17-13. But I will take the Texans because with the Colts, it's a little bit uncertain at the running back position this week. So I'm going to take Houston. Next, we got the Buccaneers and the Falcons. And the Falcons, they have a little bit of momentum from the last 2 weeks of the season. I don't really want to pick the Falcons because I haven't picked the Falcons in about 6 to 7 weeks. But I'm going to pick them to win this week because I'm not sure what to expect out of Tampa Bay. 1 week, they beat the Rams. Everyone thinks that maybe the Buccaneers with Bruce Arians, maybe this is the answer they needed. Then the next week, Jameis Winston is turning the football over at an alarming rate. So I'm going to take the Falcons this week at home to win 3 in a row. Next, we've got the Broncos and the Bills. The Broncos had a 20-0 lead against the Vikings at the half last week. And they just let the Vikings come back on them. And Brandon Allen couldn't find Noah Fant towards the back of the end zone on the final play of the game to at least give the Broncos the comeback that they needed, especially after blowing a 20-point lead. And the Bills, they had a dominant performance against the Dolphins last week. But, as I said, the Dolphins. So that's the huge key here. But I think the Broncos, they're going to redeem themselves from last week. Because the Broncos, they're not the team that their record shows. Despite the record, a lot of those games, they are really close. Like the Jaguars, Bears, and last week against the Bills. Those are 3 possible games the Broncos could have had. So I'm going to take the Broncos to recover this week. This is one of my upset picks this week. So I'm going to take Denver. Next we got the Giants and the Bears. The Bears lost another one last week with another abysmal offensive performance. And Chase Daniel could possibly be the quarterback this week because Trubisky left last week with a hip injury. There will be some games this season where the Bears will at least look a little bit decent on offense. I think this is one of those weeks. I'm going to take Chicago in this. Next, we have the Steelers and the Bengals. Bengals have yet to win a game this season, while the Steelers, they have a little bit of extra rest compared to the Bengals. Steelers got about 3 days extra rest on the Bengals at this point. So I'm going to take the Steelers in this. Although this is a rivalry game, a huge division rival. So this could be a very close one because the Steelers and Bengals, they tend to play each other close at occasion, and this could be it. But I just can't see it this time, considering that A.J. Green is probably not going to play at all this season, and the Bengals, they're down to Ryan Finley at quarterback. So I'm taking Pittsburgh. Next we have the Dolphins and the Browns. The Dolphins, I think now they have their 2 wins. I think they're going to go right back to tanking. I think they just wanted to get a couple wins under their belt. While the Browns, they are surprisingly on a 2-game winning streak right now. So I'm going to take the Browns. I know I rarely pick the Browns on here, but it's against the Dolphins, and I really don't know what to do. This is the weekly I have to pick somebody pick, and I just have to pick the Browns because there's really no other choice on this. The Dolphins haven't given me any reason this season to pick them in a game. Next, we have the Panthers and the Saints, and I'm going to pick the Saints because it's really hard to beat New Orleans in New Orleans, even though the Falcons did it a couple weeks ago. I think that's just one of those fluke games. I think the Saints now, I think they're going to be picking up momentum now. I think it's going to continue this week against the Panthers. I'm going to take the Saints. Next, we have the Raiders and the Jets. And this could qualify as another game of the weekly I have to pick somebody. The Jets, they're on a 2-game winning streak, surprisingly. But the Raiders, they are the surprise team this season in the National Football League. I don't care about the 49ers being a surprise team. Well, I do. It is a surprise. But I feel like what the Raiders have been through in this offseason, towards the beginning of the season, I think the John Gruden and his staff deserve a lot of credit. Trading for Antonio Brown in the offseason. Antonio Brown demands a trade. You get rid of the toxic Antonio Brown. And despite not having him, despite trading away Khalil Mack and trading away Amari Cooper in the most recent season, you're still in contention for the AFC West. Deserves huge credit. The fact that they have a winning record right now is very impressive. And I'm going to take Oakland to continue their winning streak this week. I'm going to take the Raiders in this. So the Raiders, they have an easier schedule than the Chiefs towards the end of the season. We could see the Raiders end up surprising everybody and appearing in the playoffs. So I'm going to take Oakland in this. Next, we've got Seattle and Philadelphia. The Eagles, they played very good defensively against the Patriots last week, but their offense just couldn't get going. In fact, maybe if a couple different plays turned out differently for Philadelphia, maybe they at least force overtime, or they could end up winning this game. And I think the Eagles will redeem themselves. Despite Seattle coming off a bye week, after coming off that emotional victory against the 49ers in overtime, I just think the Eagles, they're going to go out and redeem themselves. I think Alshon's going to come back this week. The Eagles should get Bradman back, one of their best linebackers. And I think it's going to help them this week against Seattle, because I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, Seattle, they just seem to skate by throughout a lot of these games. And I think there's no skating by this week, because you can only skate by so many times before you have to take your L. And I think this is a week where the Seahawks, they have to take an L. They need to be humbled. So I think the Eagles will humble the Seahawks this week. I have the Eagles. This is one of my upset picks of the week. So I'm taking Philly. Next, we have the Lions and the Redskins. This is another pick of I have to pick somebody this week. And I'm going to pick the Lions because Haskins just is completely getting screwed over by his offensive line. What's happening in Washington is just completely unacceptable. And there needs to be a lot of changes in that Redskins organization the second their season ends. So I'm going to take Detroit in this. Enjoy your easy win, Detroit. Next, we got the Jaguars and Titans. Nick Foles is back at quarterback for the Jaguars. His return was not a good one, while the Titans, they're coming off a bye week. So I'm going to take the Titans in this matchup, because the Titans, they're coming off bye week, emotional win against Kansas City. So I'm going to take Tennessee to win again this week. Next, we've got the Cowboys and the Patriots. This could arguably be one of the best games of the week. The Patriots in the last 2 games that they've had, their offense just hasn't seemed to have been clicking. And I think with 2 bad offensive performances in a row for the Patriots, I think it's only best to assume that the Patriots will come out firing on all cylinders. In fact, I think that Tom Brady is going to end up throwing for probably 340 yards and probably 3 or 4 touchdowns this week. I think the Patriots beat the Cowboys very convincingly this week. Moving on to the Sunday Night Football matchup between the Packers and the 49ers. I didn't really expect this to be one of those games of the week, but the 49ers, they are tied with the Patriots for the best record in the league. And the Packers, they are really clicking with new head coach Matt LaFleur. Although they did have that game against Philadelphia where they should have won, LaFleur should be held accountable for that one. But no matter what, the Packers are still in prime position to win the NFC North. And I'm going to take the Packers this week. I'm really not sure if this can classify as an upset because I feel like based off of kind of on paper, the Packers could be considered a small favorite in this matchup. But I'm going to take the Packers to beat the 49ers this Sunday night. Next, well, not only next, but finally, Monday Night Football, the Ravens and the Rams. Lamar Jackson is one of the front runners for the league MVP. Lamar Jackson he's revamped this Ravens offense. And the Ravens running game, I think this is going to be a huge matchup. It's going to be coming down to the Rams defensive line versus the Ravens running game. I think that's the matchup within the matchup here. But I think the Ravens running game is going to come out on top in this, which means I'm going to take the Ravens to beat the Rams in this on Monday Night Football. So those are my picks this week. For review, I like the Texans, Falcons, Broncos, Bears, Steelers, Browns, Saints, Raiders, Lions, Titans, Patriots, Packers, Eagles, and Ravens this week. Comment your picks down below. Like, share, subscribe, and I will see you next time.